All signs point to this. In a new report from New York Knicks insider Ian Begley, we now know way more about the New York Knicks' plans on how they are going to beat the Detroit Pistons using tactics that we have not seen at all throughout this Knicks season, and they are going to catch the Detroit Pistons by surprise and throw them off using this, and we're going to break it all down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here, and we're going to jump right into things as always, and you guys know what's coming. If you guys are enjoying the content and are part of that 62%, make sure to subscribe to Knicks Digest. We're on that grind. We're making around 10 to 15 videos every single week. You do not want to miss out on all the fun we're having over here, but let's jump into it. We have a lot to discuss. We know that Tom Thibodeau and the New York Knicks have one hell of a great team in the Detroit Pistons to play in the playoffs. The Pistons are hungry. They haven't won a playoff game in over 10 years, and these young guys want to change that. They have a mix of young players, specifically Cade Cunningham, but also guys like Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, who are proving to be huge parts of the Detroit Pistons' future, as well as Ron Holland. You know the deal. Then they also have some savvy veterans, most specifically Malik Beasley, who recently called out Karl-Anthony Towns and said he's not worried about him and all that. On top of that, Beasley and Towns are friends. I will do a whole TikTok on that, so make sure to stay tuned for that. It'll also be on YouTube Shorts. But on top of that, you also look at guys like Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. This team is a mix of veterans who want to prove something and young players who feel like, or really young players who want to prove something and veterans who feel like they have to prove something. So where things are at right now, Tom Thibodeau has to go about this the correct way. And I know a lot of Knicks fans are not really loving Tom Thibodeau right now, but where things stand, look, he is the head coach of this team, whether you like him or not, so you got to just understand that this is the direction things are going in. And Knicks insider Ian Begley was asked about some of the plans the Knicks are going to really go after and the tactics and lineups that they'll use. And it was mentioned by Begley in regards to playing Mitch and Towns together, starting Mitchell Robinson. He said, based on Tom Thibodeau and the way he's gone this season and really his entire Knicks tenure, I don't see him making a lineup change that drastic ahead of the playoffs. I understand what the theory is of getting Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup, improving the defense on the inside and on the floor with Cat. It changes what that starting five can do on both ends of the floor. On top of that, he said that I don't see Thibodeau in the way he's managed things since coming here being willing or open to make a drastic change ahead of the postseason. I don't think many coaches in the NBA who coached a 51-win team playing at this level with the rotation that it had. I understand the principle behind it. I don't see the change coming to the starting lineup, at least in game one, maybe later in the series. So that does mean a few things right here. First of all, it does have an impact on how this duo looks, because Josh Hart would be the guy who gets benched for Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart has openly said against specific teams he's very happy to come off the bench if that's what makes more sense for the Knicks to win. He cares about his role, but he doesn't necessarily need to start games because he just is going to do whatever the Knicks need from him most. Remember, the majority of last season, Josh Hart was not starting. I know it's hard to believe, but he was not a starter. When the Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges before the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, Josh Hart was not a starter. Josh Hart starting is new to this season. Now, it's hard to believe because how good Josh Hart has been, but he was coming off the bench. Now, in the playoffs, obviously, he did begin to start because Julius Randle, as we know, was out with the dislocated shoulder, so he didn't play, obviously minimized lineups, and then they stopped going with Precious Achiuwa in the starting lineup, started going with Josh Hart as an undersized four, and it worked, and Josh has continued to play that role. Now, if it continues to work against the Detroit Pistons like it's worked for the Knicks in previous playoff series and in this regular season, then yeah, they'll probably use that. But it also has a huge impact on a guy like Jalen Duren. Last time Duren played the New York Knicks, he didn't miss a shot against Karl-Anthony Towns. He went off. He played phenomenal basketball, and the Knicks are not going to let that happen. And that's the case. If that's the case, then the Knicks are going to make a change, and we're going to see Karl-Anthony Towns slide down to that floor, Josh Hart go to the bench and come off the bench, and Mitchell Robinson start so they can neutralize Jalen Duren, improve the defense in a general sense with your rim protector there. On top of that, also find ways to just create more offensive rebounds, and if Josh Hart's not going to be shooting open threes, which in the playoffs last year he did, so that's a good sign, then what we're going to see is basically Josh come off the bench, and he's going to come in for Mitch at the five-ish minute mark, I'd say, in the first quarter. Then he's probably going to play the rest of that half and probably do the same thing in the second. And They'll mix around Mitch and Karl-Anthony Towns after that and play them together at some bits. Mitchell Robinson, I'm expecting to get around 25 minutes per game in these playoffs. Remember, his conditioning is not fully back yet, but it doesn't matter. Tom Thibodeau is going to use Mitchell Robinson when he has to. Mitch is his rim protector, and they need Mitchell Robinson out there. The Knicks, this has been a common theme for the 7 years that Mitchell Robinson has been in a Knicks jersey. The team is better when he's on the court, not just healthy and on the team. When he's on the court, the Knicks are a more efficient team. It's literally been that way since day one, since the first time he ever stepped on the Knicks court as a player. When there was a foul and Kevin Knox got fouled, went back to the locker room, could not go back into the game. This was, I believe, 3 games into that season. That would have been, it was the year before RJ got drafted where they won 17 games. This was 2018, fall of 2018. The Boston Celtics picked Mitchell Robinson to go in and shoot the free throws. Why? Because the rim running big man who was picked in the second round is the guy who you're going to take, has to take free throws. Now, I don't remember if Mitch made one or both of those free throws. I honestly have no idea. I remember this because I was at the game, but like, I don't remember that much. It was the first time Mitch stepped on the floor. He got subbed out pretty quickly after that. Obviously, his head coach was not Tom Thibodeau, so there's that. But ever since that moment, the Knicks looked better on the floor. Mitchell Robinson has that impact on the team, and we've seen it. We've seen it with Karl-Anthony Towns, and we've just seen the way that everything goes. I mean, Mitch has openly said that he just wants to go out there and fight and compete for New York City, and it was mentioned by Begley that the Knicks, they made a bet on Mitchell Robinson at the trade deadline. They believe that Mitch has all the stuff possible to go out there and maximize that impact in the playoffs and be great for the New York Knicks. The Knicks, when Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns each play together and play over 15 minutes, they're 9-5. So we've seen the success. However, we haven't seen them play together a lot, as they've only played a combined, 40 minutes together as a duo? That's not them. There they are. And where things stand right now, we know the New York Knicks do want to use these guys together. It's very clear they do. It's just a matter of finding when to do it. And Begley, being asked about that, mentioned that Cat and Mitch have played limited minutes together in the regular season, and Tom Thibodeau on the record has talked about this as a weapon the Knicks have wanted to use when Robinson was hurt. Now that Robinson is back, they have seen it a little bit. Part of Ian Begley does believe they've only used it in a limited way because they don't want to show teams a lot of it on tape before the postseason, which I do think is a big part of this. I've talked about this off camera, on camera, all this stuff. I have mentioned this before. I think it's an absolutely great idea to not really show your hand. On top of that, Begley mentions if you look at Detroit, Jalen Duren, that's a big you're going to have to deal with. Again, Towns struggled against him on defense, not on offense. And Isaiah Stewart, too, who's also there. When those two are on the floor together, it does make sense to go with Mitch and Towns. And Begley said he'd be surprised if the Knicks don't at least try it. Then you get into that Boston series. The geometry changes a little bit, and Begley said he'd be surprised if the Knicks didn't go to it and take a look and see how it looked against Detroit when they have said it is a weapon after all. Now, I've said this before on the channel, so I'm not really going to go into depth of it. I do think the Knicks should play Mitch and Towns together against the Celtics. Yeah, it becomes hard to hide Towns on defense. It's one of the things the Celtics do well is can't really hide anyone. That's their whole thing, or one of their whole things. But Jrue Holiday can't really shoot in the playoffs historically, so there's that. On top of that, though, in all seriousness, Kristaps Porzingis struggles when he's the only big man on the floor. We've seen the net rating go down for the Celtics when he's the only big man out there, so it does make a lot of sense for the Knicks to use 2 big men against Porzingis, who's uncomfortable as the only big. We saw the Knicks do that in the last game the Knicks and the Celtics played against each other when the Knicks lost in overtime, and what we saw was a lot of success. Mitch was getting rebounds, and Porzingis had to deal with both of them, and he couldn't. He really, really struggled. Remember, Porzingis is a thinner guy than both Mitch and Towns. Those two are very big bully ball players. Now, Porzingis in no means is afraid of contact, but he's not always going to win those contact battles. I know he's gotten bigger over time, but he's not the thickest guy out there. And Mitchell Robinson and Towns are big boys, and they're going to try to body Porzingis up. And if they're together out there, it's going to be really tough for the Celtics to hang, and they're going to have to put Al Horford out there to counter, and they could definitely burn him out. Now, again, we do have to focus on the Pistons because that is the series ahead of us, and you can't get too ahead of yourself in the playoffs, or then you find yourself out of the playoffs on the couch. Now, given I guess I'll be on the couch either way, but couches are comfortable, in fairness, or at least a good couch. Don't get a bad couch. But look, I'm stupid. Look, where things stand right now, I do like the idea of Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns playing together. I do think it's going to work. I think it's a good move for this team. I mean, we just see that Mitchell Robinson this season, against Jalen Duren in his career, he's averaged 9 rebounds, 7 points, gotten an assist as well, averaging 1.3 blocks per game, getting 1.3 steals. He's been getting 1 steal. He's been very, very good. And I do want to see Mitch go against Jalen Duren because how Jalen Duren played against. How he played against Karl-Anthony Towns was not great to see because we saw Towns just struggle to guard him, and Towns himself has been great against Duren historically. It's just, again, not on defense, but that's been Towns' problem. I mean, over his career, he's played against Jalen Duren 4 times, averaging 25 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's doing Karl-Anthony Towns things. Now, Towns has a history of struggling a bit more in the playoffs, but that can't happen, or the Knicks are going to find themselves in trouble very, very early on into the playoffs. All this being said, I do think one of the reasons why Tom Thibodeau is not using this lineup is because he's trying to hide it. He doesn't want teams to know what's coming. At the end of the day, though, Towns did play with Rudy Gobert for a few years, so you could kind of mimic it and understand. JB Bickerstaff's aware of this. He knows that Towns played with Rudy Gobert, so they could watch that tape and see how Towns' reactions are. Obviously, you can't predict Mitch off of Rudy Gobert because Mitch is kind of a wild card, but you can sort of predict what Towns is going to do with another rim-protecting center out there. All this being said, I do think the Knicks are going to go to this lineup. I do think if the Knicks lose and they get beat up in rebounding, it's not going to take much. Or they don't have rim protection. It's not going to take much for Tom Thibodeau to put Mitchell Robinson in there. Don't get it twisted. Tibbs loves Mitchell Robinson. Leon Rose loves Mitchell Robinson. This team loves Mitch and understands the impact that he has. Remember, every single person picked by Steve Mills and Scott Perry. Shout out Scott Perry for getting that Kings job. Condolences, Kings. But that's not fair, but it's true. He was terrible with the Knicks. But where things stand, Mitch is the only guy left on this team from that era. That says a lot about the impact Mitchell Robinson has. He's not as replaceable as he seems. So that has to be very, very, very much taken into note. But guys, what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you want to see these two start together? Do you want to see Mitch come off the bench? Give me your playoff rotation down below in the comments. How many players? Give me the whole list. I want to see it. I want to read it. I want to interact. Guys, have a great day. Like and subscribe. Go Knicks.